Begin.
Hello and welcome to With Thunder's Applause, a podcast where two friends get together and talk about the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co-host, Zach. What up?
Nothing much. Literally nothing much. Today was really uneventful in my household.
Damn, bro. My last couple days have been super fucking eventful. I got kid doctor appointments dumped in my lap that I didn't know I had because I didn't have them. They got dumped in my lap. And then
Right.
Sick kids, strep throat, kids home from school. Got some trees planted.
That's good.
Mulberry and a Meyer lemon. Everbearing mulberry. Like, I'll keep it pretty short and shrubby.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be more like a grazing mulberry. I'm gonna tuck it in with some blueberries.
Yeah.
Grab
stuff as you go around the garden.
Yeah. So at any rate, yeah. So it's been kind of eventful. Today not so much. I fixed a toilet. Had a float valve that was just being squeaky and occasionally like letting water through. Like, it's just no one's been in the bathroom and all of a sudden you hear like it's like water cycles or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good way to waste
replaced
water.
The float valve. Like, took me an hour. It was something to do with my daughter who was home.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Home ownership, you get to learn all kinds of cool shit. I have crappy property management, so I'm learning a whole bunch of shit because they refuse to fix anything.
Yeah, I always wondered like why property managers didn't like just teach people like basic things like, hey, if this toilet is loose, like call me. Because if it's loose and it breaks seal, like I'm gonna have to replace fucking subfloor.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I might as well just like basic education. Hey, if this is running, like let me know ASAP and you can do this too, right?
Right.
Fix it. Or where the water and gas shutoffs are.
Oh, right? Yeah. I mean, nowadays TikTok exists, so you can pretty much, look everything up on there.
Yeah, that's true for most stuff, but most people don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But if the landlord communicated, hey, if this toilet feels loose, like you can tighten it or I will come do it.
Oh, you're talking about where you attach it to the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you break that wax seal, you're fucked.
Yeah, I didn't use it and my roommate didn't tell me it was loose, like, and I never used it. And then I knew it was wrong when the fucking tile started to crack because the subfloor got spongy. Yeah. It's fucking bullshit, man. Cost me a bunch of money, and I think I traded some weed for part of it too. But yeah,
works for me.
Barter is cool, man. Barter is the future. Pay
and the past.
Your plumber, pay your general contractor, and fat sacks of ganja.
Hey, it was $200. I'll give you $250 worth of weed. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, pot's not really worth much, right? It's just not. But, it can sweeten the deal. It can make what you might be like, I feel guilty only paying that much. Like,
here's a tip in ganj.
Yeah, I don't really feel so bad. That's what they agreed to do it. And it's kind of more like one of them had like zero experience and the other one wasn't. Had experience, but not operating under a license or anything. They were just friends. I probably shouldn't say that, but whatever.
You didn't name the company. You're fine.
I don't even think they had a fictitious business name, man. I think they worked for another guy and they were picking up extra work is what it was.
Whatever it
takes. Helping me out with my floor.
Yeah.
It's cool. I learned a bunch. I could definitely do it myself next time.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
It's kind of like when we had someone help us harvest our first pig, right? Like sometimes like you can kind of figure it out watching videos and stuff. So much better to have someone that's competent, especially as far as like the I guess like confidence building, right? Like we can watch as many YouTube videos as we can, watch everything that's available and still like not really feel comfortable, like cutting a fucking rectum out of a pelvis. Because if you like, you could just fucking fuck up the meat if you like puncture, right? Like food safety stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's a fairly delicate operation. So if you haven't done it a bunch of times, like it can be pretty fucking intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to lose a whole pig just because you have butthole.
That's right.
That sounds
I don't
wrong.
want to fuck up the pig's butthole.
Nope.
Let's see. What are we doing tonight? Today is a Thursday night, so we are shooting the Poodoo, but tonight is a special edition of Shooting the Poodoo called State of the Poodoo. Because earlier this week was the State of the Union address, and I don't even know if we're going to talk about it. Could you find
We
anything at
might.
all?
No, it's not interesting is the thing. We
All
might.
right, maybe we'll
We
lead
might not.
off with that.
Yeah.
And say a couple things about it, because I did have a couple comments,
Yeah.
but they don't really need much development, and we certainly don't need to like go find clips and shit.
No, it's
If
really
you
boring.
hate yourself, you can find it online.
Yeah,
And
it's
torture
true.
yourself on your own time.
Yeah.
We're not into that shit. Well, it depends. Sometimes we're
The
into that shit.
situation. Yeah.
All right, man. So here's the two things that I absolutely want to talk about. I want to
Okay.
talk about this fucking earthquake, bro, in Syria and Turkey.
Yeah.
And I also want to talk about this train derailment in East Palestine. They call it Palestine, Ohio. You're familiar with that one?
No, I hadn't heard about
The
that.
train derailment?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Ooh, let's start with yours though, because you had like a
Yeah.
cop watch kind of article you wanted to point out,
Yeah.
and I have some thoughts on this general
Yeah.
topic here.
Yeah. There's a website called Fresno Land that kind of like keeps track of all the stuff in Fresno, so you don't have to. And my wife actually pointed this out. She started talking about it. And I'm like, shoot me forward me that email, because they'll do like like you can subscribe and they'll send you a weekly or monthly whatever thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, okay, cool. That sounds fucked up. So let's talk about it. So they basically bought a Ford F-650 and then like tricked it out, and it ended up costing them $450,000. And it's so that they can more efficiently sweep homeless camps.
Did they put like a snowplow on the front of it or something?
No, not exactly. But they were basically finding out that, they didn't want to be outside because the smell was often foul, and they wanted to be able to like use the bathroom, while they were in an area that didn't have a bathroom. So it's got like a bathroom, and it's got air conditioning and all that good stuff because it's incredibly hot or
So it's
cold.
basically, sorry, like a mobile command center for homeless people.
Yeah, mobile command center
Yeah.
that gives the officers all the things that I'm sure the homeless people would love. A place to shit. Heat when it's
Oh my God.
cold when it's hot.
Yeah, the fucking optics of that, of them
Yeah,
putting in like a
it's
conditioned space and
fucking
having a
great.
shitter and stuff.
Yeah,
While they ruin people's lives and have to fucking shit in plastic bags.
yeah, and
Holy fuck.
of course, as we all know, like as soon as you get swept up, they just throw all your shit away. So like any progress that you might have been making, like, hey, I got a tent, so I'm not gonna die. Hey, I got a cell phone, so I can start taking Venmo payments because nobody carries cash anymore. Like, hey, got any change? No, I'm sorry, I don't carry cash. Oh, I take Venmo. Well, fuck. That's ingenuitive. That's entrepreneurial. Here you go. Here's $5.
Here's $5.
You know, if a homeless person ever told me like, "Oh, I take Venmo," I'd be like, "Fuck, yes, here you go." Why the hell not? But yeah, and so it's just it's just about the optics and how terrible it is. I included a link to it if you want to look at it. But in Fresno, this is how we handle the homeless. We spend $500,000 fucking buying a fancy truck so that we can kick their asses out or even faster. It's
Yeah, having like a mobile command center type thing is office space, air conditioning, a
yeah,
bathroom, a generator, and a power awning. It's like hold
yeah, yep.
hold on before we bust your fucking head and steal all your shit. Like, man, little fucking awning comes out.
Oh yeah, it's fucking
No way,
terrible.
man. All right.
But
Well,
yeah, how fucking 22 feet long. This thing's a beast. It's a whale. But yeah, I just The specialty vehicle will give deputies and other agency personnel the ability to get out of the elements. Must be nice. Oh man. But yeah, it came out of let's see, it came out of the Civil Automation Fund. And so it's like shit that should have been used for like, oh, we want to collect um from parking meters, but nobody carries quarters anymore. Let's make it so you can use an app or like a credit card or whatever to pay for that. They took it from that fund and got a big old truck. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing when they pass an ordinance to create something like a civil automation fund, because that's like I said, act of Congress, like pass an ordinance, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a municipal ordinance or whatever. At least under the California state constitution, I believe Fresno is a pretty old and very large city, so it's a charter city, right?
I don't know that, but yes, it is old. It is large.
You don't know if your city's a charter city or a
Nah,
non-charter city.
no, I don't know. What does that mean?
So in the the California state constitution, there are chartered cities, which are cities that had a charter or a good reason for a charter.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's generally like legacy city, like cities that were basically here before World War II.
Oh
But
yeah,
then
it's
like
older than
after
that
World
though.
War II, like suburbs and shit became their own cities. Like,
Mm,
and so many of them are not chartered. So if it's an unchartered city, then
mm,
it's basically like the state writes the laws. It's kind of like
mm.
how Washington DC
We're
isn't a state.
probably chartered then because it's been farmland for a really long time.
Yeah, generally it's like the city itself, but
Yeah.
there's enough chartered cities in California that Fresno could be one of them. But generally speaking, like smaller cities or newer cities, especially like suburbs and large metro areas, they're generally non-charter.
Yeah, yeah.
So the state of California makes laws for them and all that, and chartered cities can levy some taxes that non-chartered cities cannot. Like
Oh,
non-chartered
okay.
cities, I don't think can levy certain taxes
I'm pretty
under state
sure.
law.
I just kind of Google it real quick. Yes, yeah, yeah. We are a charter city. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what was my fucking point before I got distracted on that?
Spend a
Oh,
bunch of money.
when they write the ordinance, right?
Mhm.
Like they have to put in there if this fund has excess cash, like that gets distributed in some way. Like maybe it goes into like a different fund for uh grant projects related
Okay.
to digital rights or internet access, right? Like, oh, here's a fund where the city can kind of like in those little pockets of the city where there isn't high speed internet yet,
Mhm.
they can be like, okay, well, what we don't spend out of this automation fee can go over into this other account that'll sit there and pool up and then be used as like matching funds if the federal government or the state of California
Ah.
says we want to spend on municipal broadband, we'll give grants. And then generally most grants from federal or state government require some kind of matching fund, which is why a lot of the like, especially on housing, there's so much fucking housing money in California.
Mhm.
Most cities will not put up matching funds,
Okay.
and most developers won't put up matching funds because
Okay.
they don't fucking want it, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
they
yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to spend a little money to get some money from the state,
Right,
right?
which just seems idiotic.
No.
It's like on all those. If you listen to public radio or whatever, they're like, oh yeah, we have a matcher. If
Yeah.
we can get $1,000 donated, they'll give us another thousand. Yeah.
Yeah, at least in my city, the community development department, which would be where like housing and public health and other things like that would go.
Yeah.
We use county public health. We don't have like municipal public health department.
Right.
The county does that. The county does hazmat, and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, we have like basic hazmat in our fire department, like certifications, but like
Hmm.
the main incident response would be from the county. Um, but community development department in the city is entirely funded by a set of federal grants that come through HUD, Housing and Urban Development,
Yeah.
the federal government.
Okay.
And because those funds have administrative costs allocations, like you can spend up to 40% of this on admin, the only two people in that entire department are entirely funded by federal money.
Okay.
The city puts zero money into community development.
I mean, seems right. I was never overly
And the
impressed.
director's not a bad person, but like if it's the same one that I met a number of years ago,
Mhm.
but like they're not particularly ambitious, and they also make like department head level salaries,
Okay.
right? So like they have no staff, they can't, they're no one to organize like college students. Like the local university has a GIS department. Like
Yeah.
city housing and urban development could be like, let's collaborate. Your GIS master's degree students or whatever can help us do this study we want to do about the city, like poverty or urban trees or um whatever, right? And do mapping projects or things for housing, like uh down payment assistance or deposit assistance and all these other things, right?
Okay.
Like they
Gotcha.
don't put any money to it.
Yeah. Huh. We've got a viewer. Hi, viewer.
Priorities, right? All
Yeah.
right, so let's keep moving on with this
This
story.
one, I like this one. Uh, the uh, the approval felt sneaky, adding that most residents in Fresno County do not have the luxury of attending Fresno County's Board of Supervisor meetings, which can happen which happen every other Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. I mean, I could
Yeah.
attend those. Maybe I should start attending those.
I actually think in the state of California, boards of supervisor are compelled to meet at that time, which is
Interesting.
crazy to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
you have to basically
and
not work or work nights in order to go to that.
yeah, and even though the city meets at like 6 o'clock on Tuesdays,
Hmm.
every other Tuesday, um, most people can't sit in a meeting from 6 to midnight every Tuesday, right? Like,
That's a hell of a long meeting. Yeah.
I mean, that's how long they are, though.
Yeah.
They're rarely done by 10:30, 11. Rarely. Usually it's like midnight, 12:30.
Yeah.
And so realistically, like people can't attend that. Like it's a barrier to participation in local
Right.
government, right?
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of interesting looking at how they spent money, right? That's meant for making the city's operation more efficient, or the counties rather, it looks like, and then spent it on a mobile command center for homeless camp sweeps,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
It's
So they can sit in their conditioned cube with
yeah.
a functional toilet and you know a
Put up the
power awning.
awning. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe cook some hot dogs or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah, while they steal people's shit and throw it away. It's
Yeah.
better than, maybe, I don't know if it's better, but the city here, like they just use like a front loader. And like I was looking at damage by the creek bed. They just like rolled a front loader down there and all like right in the peak rainy season
Oh, so
and
it
just
ruined.
ripped it all up. So there's all sorts of erosion and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fucked
It's fucked up.
up.
I would assume the state like water quality board would step in, but I think they have some kind of exemption, or they just say,
Probably.
well, homeless people trash, so it's just as bad,
Yeah.
right?
Like, no, no, it's not.
Which I get it. It is an eyesore. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's see. I also got another one from the same place. They made I think the average housing value is $800,000 here, and they're out of water because they're all on well, and they tapped it. It's fucking. This is what it looks like: green everywhere. Nice green trees, not palm trees or anything. Necessarily greatly drought resistant. Just trees and greenery. And now they have no water. Fucking hilarious. And
wow.
yeah, yeah, and it's like um Rachel was doing an appraisal on a house where the well ran dry, and it drops the value of your house 40, 50, $60,000.
Surprised it doesn't drop it more, dude.
Well, that's the thing is this one, it just needed to be expanded and deepened, and it was going to be fine. But these ones, they're just like, nah, the groundwater's gone. Like you could drill as deep as you want. Like you'd have to find another lower down uh, yeah, or capped
Yeah,
water
another
source.
pocket of water
Yeah, and
that's
you're just not
deeper.
going to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
Sometimes that's hard, man. It depends on your underlying geology. I would
yeah,
assume that they'd be able to tap a lower layer, but
it doesn't always
depends
happen.
on
Yeah.
how far in the foothills they are, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so they're just out of water. Housing price is probably going to go down. And the thing is, they were told about it 30 years ago. Like, hey, this is a problem. Like when it was being built, they were like, hey, this is going to be a problem for you in the future. And they're like, that'll never happen. It's 30 years in the future. Humans don't live that long.
Dude, if I was a plumber that was competent doing like rainwater catchment systems,
Hmm.
be all over that drought resistant landscaping, right?
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
like, you can try and sell this at a $300,000 loss, or you can put like another 15 or 20 grand into this and at least have something to work with.
Yeah, and it is near a lake, so I mean, chances are they get slightly more rainfall than they do around
Well,
here.
it's a
So
recharge too,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it'll take time, but yeah.
All right, what's our next story?
I don't know. Let's see. What did I say for the?
You know, it'd be really rad if we watched some doom porn. Like, fucking, did you see the aftershocks of that quake, bro? Like, they're already
No.
like destruction just everywhere, and then like people are out right in the street or whatever, being like, "Oh my god, what the fuck?" And then there was an aftershock, so you see these apartment blocks that looked like they had survived, and then they just fucking
So this was the
like
one in Turkey, right?
it was in Turkey and Syria. In fact, it would be cool to pull up a map. And then when you play a video, that'll be a really great opportunity for me to top off my beverage.
Your shocks.
Do you just keep like a ice chest with a 6-pack in it by your foot?
No, I don't. I actually don't have anything this week. There's
Oh,
like
okay.
one beer in the fridge. I could have that, but we drank way too much last night. We went out and had like 3 beers at the or 3 beers at a bar, nearby, and then came home and had between the two of us 11 9% beers. So
Yeah, that's pretty heady beer.
spent all today pretty much in pain.
Pain.
Yep.
Not high.
Scenes
Not
of
high.
devastation unfolding right now in Turkey and Syria after what's being called one of the most powerful
Make
earthquakes to
that
hit the
full
region
screen
in a
so I can
century.
Yeah.
I'll BRB.
More than 1,600 people were killed and thousands were injured when the massive quake struck Turkey's Gaziantep province early on Monday morning. And with an unknown number of people still buried beneath the rubble, that number could rise dramatically.
And it's gone.
We do not know how far the number of dead and injured will rise, as debris removal works continue in many buildings in the quake zone. Our hope is that we will recover from this disaster with the least loss of life.
Rescue workers frantically searching for survivors in bitterly cold temperatures. But even as they do, major aftershocks are rocking the area. CNN's Scott McLean is following developments, joins us here in London with the latest on that. And these aftershocks are massive, aren't they?
Yeah, the number of challenges here for rescue workers, Max, just continues to multiply, really. These aftershocks, under any other circumstance, had there not have been a 7.8 overnight, you would call them massive earthquakes on their own. So you had the 7.8,
Yeah.
which happened after 4 o'clock in the morning, and then just about 2.5 hours ago or so, you had another major aftershock
fucking
that was a
wild, bro.
7.5. And just to
That is
put
a
that into context,
huge
that
rubble
is
pile.
the strongest earthquake, stronger even than the last really substantial earthquake in Turkey, which was 1999. That was a 7.4, and that one killed 17,000 people, left 500,000 people homeless. So it just gives you a sense of what we're up against as
500,000.
these rescue
Yeah.
workers are battling not only the constant tremors and smaller earthquakes,
Speaking
but
of
also the
homelessness.
risk of major aftershocks like this one, plus the cold
It's
weather,
all
plus
woven
the
together in a
snow.
beautiful
I just want
tapestry.
to show you a piece of video that we've gotten in not long ago from Malatya. This was from the most recent aftershock there. This is a reporter with
We're gonna
a
get
Turkish channel
fucking.
called A News,
We're gonna get
live on
copyrighted
air
watching this long of a
when
clip
it
of
seems
Oh
CNN.
what
no. Oh man. Yeah, it was earlier in the thing it showed a picture. It was this scene here. This guy's got a cell phone. Everybody else got their fancy mics. He's just like, no man, I got a cell phone. And this guy
Did it work?
here.
So Yeah, this was like a really big fucking deal, and like I think the estimated death toll was like 11,000 last I saw, and they expect it to probably climb up to like 30 or 40.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not funny, haha, but like, do you remember the fucking tsunami in Indonesia? When was that? Like 2005, 2007, 2010, something like
Vaguely,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So the Indonesian tsunami, like you probably look it up, bro. You're an internet wizard. Look up Indonesian tsunami. I think it killed like 500,000 people.
Indonesia.
I forget the year though. I want to say 500,000. Oh, 2004. Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's
225,000. Yeah.
only 225?
Yeah. Can't really see.
I thought it was 500,000. My bad.
It was half of 500,000.
I understand what 250,000 is, bro. You're like, here, let me teach you fractions.
They're fun, I swear.
No, but seriously, like 250,000 people, still like a boatload of people. And
Yeah.
looking at that wreckage, like part of it is like in Syria, right? Like it's been a location of the U.S. proxy war, and an attempted regime change war. And so a lot of the people who are living in those areas that in the north where it got hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And actually, while I monologue or whatever, look up a plate tectonics diagram, because I'm not unfamiliar with that region's geology. I know it's active, right? Because you had like Pompeii got buried in ash, but you don't have volcanoes where you don't have a subduction plate, right? Like, or I mean, I guess hotspots, whatever.
Well,
anyway, I know
hotspots
it's geologically active.
There we go.
But at any rate, like 11,000 people is a lot of people, and in northern Syria, like a lot of those folks like were internally displaced peoples.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so they lived in other cities or regions, and they moved up to these other areas to kind of get away from the fiercest fighting areas,
mm-hmm.
right, for the safety of their families, which is, intrinsically human, right? And they had to construct housing, like as, hey, we need shelter, right? And so it's not necessarily steel reinforced or whatever.
Right.
Well, things.
Similar to the other earthquake that we covered earlier, that was in Thailand, was it?
Philippines.
The
one we did like a couple months back.
Yeah, and how it was like, most of the houses weren't, well reinforced and all that. So ended up
some of it's building standards, but I guess the point I was making is that in Syria, like they couldn't afford to abide by building standards because it's under sanctions. They can't get materials. Plus, it's very recently been destroyed by war. So they're just kind of trying to do the basic human thing, which is I need to regulate my body temperature as an organism. I will construct something to help me regulate my body temperature.
Right.
So let's look a little bit at the blow that one up, bring that one to full screen.
See if I can. Yeah, I can. Okay. Yeah.
So
I can't get much bigger than that easily, but
okay,
this
it's probably bigger on the live stream. I'm just saying, like
it is. No, it's pretty big. You can read it.
Okay, I can enlarge it. It's all good.
This one right
here. So you
here
have several faults. It looks like.
Yeah.
That is the ridge. That's a separation point.
This one's going to the east, and this one's going to the north. So this one's trying to escape from this one. This one's like, nah, get back here. So they're kind of chasing. The Arabian plate is chasing the Anatolian plate, and the Anatolian plate's heading off towards Greece.
Yeah, and for context, like, and I always love that about like California, right? Like looking at various realities, we have like the oil fields in Kern County, right? Like well, what happened? Scroll back in.
I changed the map. So we get a little bit of a bigger picture on
sure. I was going to say that geology, right? Is those mountains that are raised up by that activity are the headwaters of the Tigris and Euphrates, which are like the birthplace of Western civilization.
Right.
Yeah.
So
like this activity of pushing and earthquakes and creating mountains
Yeah.
is what gives a geology that has the springs and gets that has the orographic effect to drop the water, right, and create a hydrology that feeds these rivers that were the birthplace of Western civilization, at least this independent development of complex civilizations. So it's, it sucks, but it's also really important, right? Like,
Yeah. I imagine this is extra crappy because like all these areas that are around the ocean are going to get double hit. Like you get the earthquake, and then you probably get like water intrusion, stuff like that.
yeah, the Mediterranean coast of like that area, I guess the
Mhm.
Levant it's sometimes called, but basically the Eastern Mediterranean, like those parts of Syria, like where Damascus is, I think Damascus
Yeah.
is in that area, and some of the other medium-sized cities, they're all, you know, ancient trade empires and stuff, and they're all very hilly, much like Greece, right? Or
Yeah.
Turkey or whatever. It's like a lot of hills and mountains because of that activity.
Yep. Yeah. 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 You got the. Let's see. Went to another one. Yeah. 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 This one. This one. Forming hills, mountains, etc. And you got this one just kind of moving along. The only place that would really form anything would be right around here where it meets this one.
Yeah.
This is just going laterally. Still
A
causes a lot of earthquakes.
transform fault, refresh our memories here. A transform fault is not subduction and it's not strike slip.
Yep. It's neither rifting nor going under one another. It's just moving side by side. That's what the San
Oh,
Andreas
a
is.
transform fault is a strike slip fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like the San Andreas.
Yep. Yep. Just like the San Andreas. And so
Okay.
it's not going to form any hills or anything like that unless it rams into another piece of land further from the fault. But it can still get caught, and then release a lot of energy very quickly. So it's still going to give you bad earthquakes, but you won't find, volcanoes and mountain forming or anything from those.
Yeah. I did want to shout out Canadian Prepper, who, like, in a video yesterday, he mentioned that. And, he doesn't really show his politics, but being in prepper space, he definitely has some more kind of libertarian or like right libertarian or not. Yeah, kind of more right of the spectrum kind of political ideals.
Yeah.
But he's just straight up like, what's happening in Syria is absolutely fucked. Like, it's like there needs to be like an immediate suspension of all sanctions. Like,
Yeah.
and Western countries need to send like medical aid and fucking allow doctors in under, special passports or whatever. And not risk like their professional licenses and shit because they brought like sanctioned medical supplies. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely know what you mean. Yeah.
Because we sanction medical supplies. It's fucked. Like that should be considered a fucking war crime.
Yeah.
To tell people that they don't have access to certain medical technologies and materials, right?
Well,
Like
and then,
fucking gauze.
well, yeah,
No,
but
you
then,
can't send cotton gauze there because we don't like them.
yeah, but
Or
then
we're
the
trying to get
sanctions are
rid of
only
them.
coming from certain countries. I'm sure there's other area or other countries around them that are willing to provide them with supplies. But yeah,
Well,
in
Iran's
a
got their
situation,
own shit, man. That's the thing.
yeah, they do.
Israel is hostile. Turkey is
Yeah,
is not. I don't want to say been an ally, but Turkey kind of plays neutral. Turkey's playing neutral in fucking
yeah.
Ukraine too,
I'm interested
and they're a
because I
member of
was.
NATO too,
Mhm.
and they wanted to be part of the EU. I don't think the EU let them in. I'd have to double check.
Talk about Turkey.
Yeah,
No, they're not.
no.
I was interested. I was reading that Greece and Turkey have like aid pacts, more or less. They're not. I don't think they're official, but it's like, oh, there was an earthquake in Greece. Turkey helps. There's an earthquake in Turkey. Greece helps. I don't know that extends, to Greece being like, hey, let's help Syria. Somehow I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that Turkey's been kind of a problem in that conflict. I don't know all of the details and don't want to pretend I do,
Yeah.
but I know they allowed a porous border to allow like jihadis and shit in
Mm,
to fight for Daesh.
gotcha.
And stuff like that. They've that's where the oil that was being produced to fund those insurgent groups, terrorist organizations, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
them. That's how they were funding themselves, is with oil.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why the US blew up the fucking Nord Stream pipeline. Did you see this? You probably didn't because you don't follow closely, but
No.
you know how we were talking about, of course, the US blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, right?
Yeah.
Well, Seymour Hersh, who's a pretty well-known and established journalist, who did a lot of like really important reporting during like Vietnam and stuff, like exposing like US war crimes and shit.
Yeah.
And he just wrote a piece about Nord Stream that like gave so many more details than we had before. Because like I think everybody was like, "Oh no, yeah, the U.S. did that shit." Then
Yeah.
he provided a bunch more details of like the inner workings and how it happened, and like that it was like divers. They had trained special divers or whatever, these Marines that are like usually generally go into like ports or whatever that have been mined or otherwise obstructed by like sinking boats or blowing up bridges or whatever, and they do underwater demolition and basically help clear harbors and shit and remove obstructions or whatever. But I guess they were involved in this, and there was a expansion, right? Like I think we pointed out in an earlier show where we talked about it, about how like the U.S. Liquefied natural gas companies all like were fucking stoked. So like,
Okay.
we're gonna make so much money. I didn't realize until this article came out that like Norway was also heavily involved because the North Sea gas fields.
Yeah.
And so they had already had a pipeline going in, I guess a smaller capacity pipeline. But now since the larger pipeline from Russia got destroyed by the US, now Norway's selling more gas.
Sauce.
And you know, the whole idea of we got to make sure that like Russia can't use its gas as a fulcrum to apply leverage in
Right.
discussions with Europe. And
And
so the US created the catastrophic energy crisis in Western Europe on purpose.
you would suppose that more Europeans would be pissed about that.
But the thing is that we have a transnational capitalist class.
Well, yes.
And what the people want doesn't fucking matter. And what the ruling class see is a clear benefit from ensuring that they control the sources of energy for those societies.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
if it's a pipeline from Russia, basically like Russia did what like I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I'm going to botch it. But basically, yeah, basically where like, yeah, anyway, fuck it. It's not important.
Yeah.
So let us. Oh, you're looking at could they survive without Russia?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what else we had. Shooting the Poodoo. Housing project. What's up with the balloon?
Oh yeah, let's do an update on the balloon.
So I haven't heard a ton. Like the only other thing I've heard is just we shot it down, and of course China's pissed, and we're recovering all the pieces, and they're like, "Cool, give it back."
Okay, so we don't need to go into every detail, but bring up a picture of the balloon so that that's on screen when we're talking about it.
Right on.
Here are the details that I learned a number of days ago. Right. Oh my God, it's so nefarious. It kind of looks like a little Death Star.
It's coming right for us.
It's coming right for us. It is a planet destroyer in the sense that, whoa, I got out of focus. It is a planet destroyer in the sense that, like, it's probably going to precipitate nuclear war.
Yeah. Sure.
It's pretty fucking likely at this point. The U.S. is fucking itching, dude.
Yeah,
There's a
well,
perfect image. It actually looks like it should be someone's flag.
yeah, why isn't it
That
red with
should
yellow
be
stars?
it.
What?
Yeah, we'll do the fucking. I don't know. Having conversations with people about electoral politics, I'm like, fuck it, dude. I'm just gonna create my own political party. It's gonna be called the Tin Hat Party, and the whole objective is gonna be like basically steal the aesthetic of fucking. Goddamn, what's his name? The dude with the boot always talks about
Oh, Vermin
ponies and
Supreme.
gingivitis.
Vermin Supreme.
Yeah, Vermin Supreme.
Yeah.
Basically, steal the aesthetic of Vermin Supreme. But this would be our flag. It would be the tinfoil hat fucking party, and our flag would be
A
a
Chinese
blue
balloon with a
field with a
tinfoil hat
white
on it.
circle on it, but it's not a white circle. It's the fucking Chinese spy balloon.
Have you ever heard of a tinfoil Tom?
No, but that makes sense that someone like that exists.
He just covers conspiracy theories and like weird, odd stuff.
That makes sense.
It's meant to be funny, and it is. So
I should check him out. Is it so? It's meant to be like satire.
I mean, a
It's
lot
not
of
like it's not like that kind of really shit lib satire like Some More News, right? Like, because Some More News is pretty funny, and like
no.
Polly on the Pocket Report is pretty funny.
It's a lot shorter than him for sure, and
Okay.
like he'll cover like fucking cryptids and stuff like that. So he's all over the place. But he'll fake like the FBI found him, and they're coming to fucking extract him or whatever. It's just pretty darn funny, short form. You don't like Some More News, huh? Oh man,
I don't know.
I love that guy
think his
yelling at
humor's
me.
a little like playing like a burnout guy. Let's not talk about that. But I do like his content generally, but it does have like super shit libby vibes. Like it sometimes feels like part of the CIA media infrastructure where they like want to have these like edgy hipsters that like
Yeah.
seem disinterested, but then they're gonna like to get you like into politics. Yeah, it's all absurd, but then they're gonna pepper it with like Russia is evil and was completely unprovoked, right? Like, and you're like, wait a second, they were not unprovoked.
Interesting. I've never gotten that watching
That
it.
is a fucking fabrication that most people see through. Anyway, this is going to be the flag of the tinfoil hat party.
Okay, do it, man.
Manifesting it right now.
I will register for your party.
Fuck yeah, let's do it, dude. It starts with 2, and then next thing you know, like
better than either of the other
our
ones.
first elected representative is getting killed in a theater after his show.
There you go.
Oh shit!
I volunteer you.
No, that remembered Lincoln was assassinated by the international fashion industry conspiracy.
Oh yeah,
like from fucking Zoolander.
Yeah. Male models are dangerous, man.
Such a great fucking movie, dude.
It's
really underrated. Like,
I like the fact
genuinely fucking funny.
Yeah, I also like the fact that part 2 was funny as well. Like,
I never saw Zoolander 2.
Oh, it wasn't just a cash grab. It was pretty fucking hilarious.
Okay, I'll have to check it out, man.
Not Justin Bieber, he gets shot.
I wanted to talk about the balloon.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can go on to a video about the train. And wrap up on that unless you got something else.
No.
But on the balloon, real quick. When it followed the jet stream, right? And if you look at the arc that it flew, and then you look at a fucking jet stream map,
right?
It followed the fucking jet stream. People are like, it was over our sensitive installations. And as I saw some comedian point out, it's the US. So basically, if it was over the US for more than a couple hundred miles, it was probably over some kind of sensitive installation.
Right.
They were so highly fucking militarized. There's a half a dozen or more bases in every fucking state in the union.
Yeah, and then and then people don't seem to understand that as you change altitude, there's different winds going in different directions. Some altitudes might be stagnant. Like I had to explain to one of our, I guess, former friends, that the reason that the jet passes over and sometimes the clouds that it causes dissipate and sometimes they don't is because they're probably up in an area where the wind's pretty calm, because that's a nice place to fly. You don't have to worry about turbulence or anything like that. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, but sometimes they do dissipate. And it's like turbulence.
You're talking about fucking chemtrails.
Chemtrails as opposed to
which we could do one of our next shooting the Poodoo or State of the Poodoo. We could discuss like some common conspiracy theories
Yeah.
and easily debunk them, because I come from aviation, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you most planes, like, I literally had 747s that taxied out, and due to traffic, they were stuck holding short, and there was like an incident or something, like someone blew a tire or something, which is like not catastrophic, but like it requires you go look for pieces of rubber on the runway, and like you have to, the fire trucks have to come out, because generally when you blow a tire, you overstep the brakes and they get hot, right? Like hot brakes,
Right.
and like all these other things. So like it takes some time. Fucking 747 was short of the runway for like 15 minutes, and was like, we have to taxi back because we need to get a little bit more fuel, because we are so heavy and we planned this flight so tight that like we don't have enough fuel to get to our destination at this point, because we sat idling for 15 fucking minutes.
Right.
So like when people are like, oh, these planes that like, and I can also see radars, right? So I said I was going to explain it later. I'm explaining it now. Everything is tagged. Like, so they would have to like basically fool like dozens of people to create a flight plan and a call sign for a commercial plane, because like, you can see the contrails and you look up and you're like, oh, who is that? And you set your filter so that you're not, because you're on your radar, you can filter out like certain information.
Right.
And so you can just like remove your altitude filter and see shit that's like way above your airspace. Normally you would focus in on what you control, but you remove the filters, you can see it, anything the radar picks up. And you're like, oh, that's a United Airlines flight. And you're like, there's no fucking way that they could carry fluids.
Right. Unless they're in
of
on
that volume to create like some kind of mist in the atmosphere.
That would explain why
and
they're underbooked.
passengers and luggage and all the fuel they need to fly to fucking Hawaii, because like once you know the call sign, you can know where they're going.
Yeah.
Because it's all public information.
Right. Just ask Elon Musk.
Yeah, right. Or the only non-public information is the little black book that the judge won't tell us who's in it.
Yeah.
Fucking Epstein's pedo fucking island and all the rich motherfuckers, Prince Andrew and fucking Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, all of the Bills.
Yeah, Bill just likes to finger the sacks.
Except Buffalo Bill. Wait, wasn't Buffalo Bill the guy from fucking Silence of the Lambs?
Silence of the Lambs, yeah. Yep.
Exactly. He wasn't there. Maybe he was. I don't know.
Applying lotion.
Yeah, exactly. So the balloon, sorry.
Yeah.
They did shoot it down off the coast of the Carolinas.
Yep.
They shot it with F-22, which was funny because I was looking into it and I was like, do we even have planes that can fly that high?
And that was a question I had too, yeah.
F-22 and the F-35. The U-2 also, but the U-2 is not designed with pylons to carry weapons. It has camera equipment, and then the rest of it is required to fly because it's specially designed to loiter and use very little fuel at high altitudes with very fancy camera equipment.
Spy equipment. Yeah.
I watched an interesting documentary on Area 51. We should include that in our conspiracy theory show.
Oh, I'm putting it on the.
It's basically the CIA and the U.S. Department of Defense were using it to develop like stealth technology and other. They were developing aircraft, and it makes complete sense, but it's not as exciting as Aliens, for sure. At any rate, so they shot it down. F-22 shot it down. Do you know what estimated altitude it was?
I believe it was like 61,000 or something like that.
Yeah, 60 to 65 is the figure.
Yeah.
And what did we say the other day when it was breaking news?
We said 60,000.
Yep, because the Pentagon said well above commercial air traffic.
Yeah.
And we said if it's in our airspace, it's barely in our airspace. But you had some information on that, and I also looked, dude. I have so much shit to do, and I probably spent a good hour and 30 minutes like looking through the ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization. It's basically like the international body that oversees and coordinates like aviation globally.
Okay.
In the ICAO, I could not find a definition. And it's funny is that after all of that, and like earlier tonight, I was looking something up and I saw the Wikipedia page, which said there's not really a clear definition. I was like, fuck, I wish I read that first. I probably would have saved myself an hour. Like literally going into like documents. Like I went to the Chicago Convention, which was like an international meeting of states to discuss aviation like 100 fucking years ago, right? And then work my way forward through all the amendment conventions, right? Like where they rediscuss the issue in light of new geopolitics and new technology, et cetera, so forth, right?
Yeah.
And rediscuss the issue. But I do know for a fact, and this I could not find any other information against, is that U.S. controlled airspace only goes to 60,000.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I could not find a hard limit. Like I've seen some call it like, what is it, the Hadley line? But that's
Oh yeah. Yeah.
or whatever it's called. But
Yeah. Yeah. I
basically
can't
it's
remember.
where they're kind of like, okay,
Carmen
atmosphere
line.
is so thin now, we can call that outer space.
Yeah. Carmen
But
line.
really, these like this gravitational hold on gases extends for a while, but at some point you got to draw a line, right? Like what's
Yeah.
space and what's atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if a plane that requires oxygen to combust fuel can't fly there, it's probably not air.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But we have planes that can fly, like the F-22 can fly about to 60,000. There's only a few aircraft in the world that can.
Right.
And so that should tell you that like the conditions are very different than they are where commercial flight takes place. And the F-22 was one of them, and what I saw said it was at 60 to 65,000 feet, and the aircraft shot from 58,000, meaning that F-22 wouldn't even go to 60.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've heard like a Hadley line or something like that, or whatever it's called, is like a demarcation line, but I could not find anything that said there's like who controls above 60,000 feet and to where there's a ceiling. I do know there is like a international convention on space or something that basically says no one can own space.
No one can own it. No one can use it for military purposes, et cetera,
except like satellite, right? Spy satellites.
Right. Yeah. Those are not specifically like for war necessarily, but if you were to like arm them with, well, it'd be really stupid, but if you did like the rod from God style thing.
Do you want to play a video on this or on the next topic?
I do. I just wanted to point this out because this was the thing that like drove me crazy about it was the fact that we used a Sidewinder missile to shoot the fucker down, and those can cost up to $400,000. So like, we spent $400,000 shooting this thing down. I looked it up because last video we talked about like, why don't they just shoot it full of bullets? And I stand corrected. I looked it up. That has been tried before, and they pumped like something like 1,000 rounds into one of them, and it did almost nothing. It slowly came down, and eventually, they lost it because who the hell knows where it went. Yeah, let's do video on this train disaster in Ohio. Who do we want to take from? CBS, blah, blah, Tampa Bay. No. Let's do, I've never heard of these people. Let's do this. Bam, bam, bam. Share this tab. Share this tab instead. All right.
We're following for you right now.
Yeah.
We start with new details. On Friday night,
it was in Ohio,
massive train derailment in East Palestine. That's near Youngstown. Many people we know have had to leave their homes and their businesses remain closed due to the mess, which is still smoldering this morning.
Yeah, if you or someone you know was impacted, families can meet with representatives of the Norfolk Southern right now at the East Palestine Park Community Center. They will be there until 8 p.m. tonight.
The crash is still under investigation this morning. Now, the train was on its way from Illinois to central Pennsylvania with 114 loaded rail cars when some 50 cars jumped the tracks. 20 of those contained hazardous materials that caught fire. The biggest concern this morning, the health risks for some of those materials.
Yo.
The EPA. Can you pause there?
Yeah.
That's probably all we need to show. Unless if people want more information, I looked and could find very little new stuff because they're just doing like regular press briefings.
Yeah.
I think they've allowed people back into their houses, but they were evacuated for 3 days, I think, or the better part of 3 days. Vinyl chloride. So I'm thinking like PVC, polyvinyl chloride, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the main ingredient in PVC plastics. Was one of the things. The trains derailed. They got there were fires, right? Because it was a crash. And there were fires, and they were genuinely concerned when they ordered evacuations. It was partly for toxins, but also because they thought some of these tanks there was evidence that they were getting hotter and building pressure,
Oh.
and they were afraid that like they said shoot shrapnel up to a mile. And I just don't think a train car could have that explosive of a force, considering
That's pretty damn far. Yeah.
We've done a fairly thorough investigation of many payloads of nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
and the fireball is not even a mile on a nuclear weapon, like a large nuclear weapon, like a 10 or 20 megaton, right? Like, so I highly doubt this train car is going to. What it would happen, it would be like the biscuit. You ever get those fucking Pillsbury biscuits?
You talking
If
about
you're
the
in
one?
pinch for fucking biscuits,
Talking about in the ones that go in the little like thing you hit it, and it
cardboard
pops open.
can.
Yeah, we have some right now.
But I pictured that fuel or liquids carried in a car on a train would not really send shrapnel as much as pop open like a fucking biscuit can.
Yeah. Hey,
because that's solid steel, right?
Yeah, yeah. And if you've ever made biscuits before, you understand why you buy them in a can most of the time.
In a can?
Yeah. Pain in the ass, man.
Why is that?
Oh, I watched Rachel do it. Like you gotta get like cold butter, fold it, roll it out, fold it again, roll it out.
Make biscuits from
scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro,
Huge.
Biscuits and pie dough are fucking crazy. If you make them
just go buy it from the store. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much easier to buy it from the store. Like, no, I am going to put my foot down in this. Pie crusts, I don't give a fuck. I generally do not eat a pie for the crust.
No, it's just there for structure.
I'm ordering it based on the filling.
Yeah.
Right? They don't say, oh, here's a pie with a flaky butter crust. You're like, what kind of pie is it? Right? Like,
yeah.
The crust
it's
is just
got
kind
flaky butter crust, and I don't give a shit about it.
And honestly, like frozen pie crusts, like they turn out pretty fucking good.
Yep.
But a canned biscuit is nowhere near like a homemade biscuit.
No, but
fuck
tons easier, and doesn't take like an hour to make. You get fucking 12.
Dude, I do canned biscuits. I wish they made a can that was like a 2-inch can. Because then when you bake it, like there's enough doughy inside with the little ones you get from the Pillsbury can. By the time they're thoroughly baked, like there's not a lot of like fluffy biscuit. It's just kind of a crusty outside and a little bit on the end, right? Like,
yeah. I think if you
I'm glad we have this discussion about biscuits.
I think if you put them right next to each other instead of giving them space, they get taller and softer in the inside. You should try it sometime.
Yeah, I've heard make them make contact because they'll climb each other too.
Yeah,
they'll get higher. Yeah, I don't know. There might be a trick to it that I
talk about biscuits.
And I'm not going to tell you I don't still buy fucking biscuits in a can, even though I prefer them homemade.
Yeah.
But you know what the best thing is to crack open some beers and make like a fuck ton of biscuits, and then you freeze them.
That's a good call. Ooh.
Much stuff. In fact, far too much stuff, I should say. Like I was going through the freezer the other day to find something to eat. I wound up pulling pork chops. Our fucking pigs put out the smallest pork chops, dude.
Oh.
They were so cute. This is a pork chop that's maybe like 2 1/4 inches in diameter. Like before you cook it.
Fucking pork choplet.
Well, I mean, but then there's bone and there's a fat cap on it, right?
Yeah.
But like the actual like loin medallion of the pork chop was like very small. They were pretty cute. They're large pigs, so there was a big fucking thick fat cap on it.
on
which
everything.
we recognize we probably should have trimmed that down. We left like an inch.
That's a massive fat cap.
Right. And I think in the future we'll probably trim to a
Half
half.
an inch. Yeah, that seems more than enough.
It's all good. We had so much fun. Like I think I said in a previous video, we had so much fucking lard. Like we were trying to hide lard. We're like, oh no, we don't have that much lard. We had like a couple pounds on the pork chops.
What do we do with all this? I don't know. You don't eat it. You use it for cooking.
Oh, you know what? A really great way that I've considered using it, especially the stuff we haven't rendered yet, because like some of it's just frozen in cubes. Some of it's been rendered and then like put in quart containers and then like refrigerated, even though it doesn't have to be refrigerated, but like, you know, you're buying a little extra time keeping it cool until you use it. But the unrendered stuff I've considered making suets, which is like basically like go get like a 10-pound bag of bird seed from the feed store and then you
Hey.
melt the fat down and then you mix
Oh,
seed in it until it's
yeah,
real
yeah. And then you
thick.
can hang it.
Yeah, and then you put it in like cake pans or bread pans or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you can and then let it harden and then you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
cut that off. And they make little baskets, or you can find some other way of hanging it up, but you can use it for like wild birds, like
Yeah,
especially in
yeah.
colder areas, because then they can get like seeds which take longer to digest, but also
Mhm.
like really kind of high energy fats.
Right. And it tastes for pig.
And it tastes, yeah, so that your crows and your sparrows and your everything else like are just thirsty for fucking pig
Meat.
fat.
Meat. Zombie
No, but I
apocalypse.
consider that for the chickens, right? Like
Oh,
it
yeah,
just
yeah.
doesn't get cold enough here to where they need, you know, our version of giving the chickens more energy in the winter is buying scratch with corn in it.
Yeah.
Because in the summer here, we buy corn-free scratch
Right.
because the corn is too much energy and it's too fucking hot and they don't need the energy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Interesting.
because they'll shed, if they take in that extra energy, they'll shed it as body heat.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like,
And
that's how
it'll
they get
heat.
rid of it, right?
Well,
Like,
you have to digest it too, which creates heat as well. So yeah.
right. So in reality, we're just like corn free in the summer and then corn in the winter. So we don't really need suet, but like it could be cool.
Yeah.
Like I might use it for wild birds or something, but it would be something to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting.
Besides candles, lubricants. I mean, if you got fucking chapped hands, dude.
Yes.
You got
Chapped
chapped hands, just handle a lot of pork fat.
Let's
Oh yeah.
you know, we're not sponsored, but Utterly Smooth.
Sponsored by Big Pork Fat, the pork fat
Oh,
industry.
you can't see it. Come on. There we go. Utterly Smooth. Good shit. Your sister told me about this shit.
I can't even see you right now.
Oh, I was holding it up. Boom.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just,
Oh, you know why I can't see you? Because I made that screen big when you were looking at a fucking map.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I was like, all I can see is this fucking bald pasty motherfucker with the funny mustache.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it basically started off as like, you apply it to chapped cow udders in order to prevent cracking and bleeding, but it works really well on hands too. And it doesn't have any aroma. It's called Utterly Smooth. It doesn't have any like aromas or anything like that. So I like it because I hate smelly shit.
I know people that got the udder cream,
Yeah.
or like udder oils or whatever.
Yeah.
Also bought like mane and tail, like horse shampoo.
Yeah, yeah.
Because some people just they find like this formula is like, this works for me and it gives me like the hair that I want.
Yeah.
And so they're buying like their personal like hygiene products at the feed
for
store.
animal. Your sister actually told me about Utterly Smooth.
Dude, that's another thing that I don't see a lot on prepper channels when they're like, oh, go to the distro center to scavenge, like after shit hits the fan or whatever. And I was just thinking like, bro, they got like pallets of oats and pallets of wheat, like whole wheat and other things at feed stores. Or even do like sunflowers, or you go get like a bird seed with millet, like that bird seed, rinse that a few times to kind of dust and impurities off of it, and then grind that into a meal and then make fucking flat cakes on a hot stone with it, and that's fucking energy right there.
Seed is
Eat
seed.
the
It
fuck
does.
out some bird seed.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is a lot of the food we have, it's kind of like how we have, female deodorant, male deodorant. It's all deodorant. But bird seed is also human
All
seed if you
aluminum.
eat it.
You absorb it right into your most tender bits.
That's antiperspirant. I'm talking about deodorant. Most deodorant is aluminum free. It's only when you get into the antiperspirant domain if they start to add aluminum into it. I've heard so many people talk about like it'll give you Alzheimer, and I'm like, show me the report because I stink. I can give up, a few of my worst years, for not smelling bad during my best.
See, this is like, the whole reason that I didn't get the fucking jab and shit. Like, I like to know what goes into me, right? Like, I want to understand it. That's why I drink and smoke.
Yeah.
Because I know that fucking smoking and drinking is going to kill me.
Right.
And I know exactly how it's going to kill me. So I can be prepared for that. I don't have to worry about some kind of weird cancer or something.
No, I mean,
not a weird. I mean,
normal cancer.
Yeah, a cancer I'm prepared for.
Well, drinking, is shown to have links to colon cancer and shit like that. I mean, if you do it really well, though, you die from.
Do I balance it when I mix it with fresh pressed pomegranate juice from the tree that's like 3 feet out my window?
I don't know. Is it organic, or do you use chemical fertilizers?
For real, spray. If I use a chemical fertilizer, it's organic certified. And generally chemical, like liquid, I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like some kind of liquid formulation.
Fish.
I use fish emulsions like quite a bit, which I get that like some people are kind of puritanical about how unclean they are, but like I have been doing this a very long time. And like I do not, like I can say definitively, like I do not get the same fucking results. Compost teas, all these kinds of like, or soil amendments and all these things.
Yeah.
Put some fucking fish in the irrigation water once a week, and like the results are fucking better. There's no way to argue with it.
Yeah.
However, I generally use compost teas, cover crops, just keeping a living soil cover.
Right.
For dynamic accumulation is another one, like, which, they'll say there's no science to, but like there's science to various plants taking up different minerals.
Right. In different ways.
I don't know how you can say, well, we haven't done a controlled variable study of dynamic accumulation. And
that's how you get some money, man. You write a paper, get some grants.
Different plants have different minerals in their tissue. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying that they're taking, and do you know if those can you measure the bioavailability of minerals in your soil? Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
It's the unsoluble stuff that gets ignored, but it exists. And so if you have a plant that can make it available and then puts it into soft tissues that then become topsoil, and all those atoms go. So it's the conservation of mass.
Yeah.
Like, what are the two types of reasoning? Inductive and deductive, right?
Yeah.
And deductive is where you go from a principle and then you say, because of this, then this, then this, and this, and this, and work that way. But inductive is the other way, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, we have this observable thing. Does it work back towards this known law? Right. And in that case, like dynamic accumulators fit inductive reasoning for the conservation of mass, because like if that plant can accumulate more magnesium in its tissues than all these other plants, then that plant tissue then decomposing, where are those magnesium atoms? Right. They're going
to percolate downward.
They're attached to long chain humic acids.
Yeah.
Right. Like humic acids have all sorts of fucking electromagnetic charge that take these things on. And now it's being held. In this case, it would be a negative charge, right? Because magnesium is +2, I think.
The standard ion. Yeah.
Yeah, standard magnesium ions +2 charge. Yeah. So then you're like, okay, so there's 2 negative receptors here. Boom, magnesium ion. Now it's available because then the fulvic acids break off, and plants. That's how plants uptake nutrients, is
Right.
through these like
They
molecules.
secrete, well, like, they'll secrete their own acid that will break down what it is
Carbon
they need
chains.
and pull it up into the roots, and there you go. Easy
It's
stuff.
all fucking fascinating. I wish I had I wish that I could study conceptual or theoretical, not theoretical, because it's all mathematics, but like just conceptual plant science, biology, etc., so forth. Because like I find it fucking fascinating. Like I find it fascinating that okay, there's this carbon chain and they're all linked because of this electromagnetic activity. I don't want to fucking measure the electromagnetivity of this molecule. I don't give a shit about measuring it. I like to understand the concept that this is how the fundamental forces of the universe interact in complex ways to give us things like photosynthesis and plant health, right?
Well,
and human health.
Well, that's why you get a subscription to Brilliant, who's not sponsoring this yet. So I'm not going to go any further with that joke. It's just one of the like learning platforms.
Okay, so it's like
heavily
Curiosity Stream.
Yeah. They advertise heavily on like a lot of science shows and stuff like that.
Do you recommend me replacing my Disney Plus subscription with it?
No, just because you can't get the Mandalorian.
Bad Batch. Have you started watching?
I am on like the third. I realized I didn't even finish the first season.
The first season.
Yeah. I got to like the very.
The first season was pretty good.
I watched it. I think I've seen the first 3, but I was kind of doing some other shit while I was watching it, so I might rewatch them. Yeah.
So anyway, this train derailment, we didn't really talk about it. You kind of showed a video when I got it to take a piss or whatever, but that's what happened to me, just FYI.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, can you show a video, please? Hurry. It's a really big deal, man. And it's like, I saw already, like within 2 days of the accident happening, there were photographs and reporting, like, I don't know if it was from the National Guard got called out, and their role was to like do a lot of environmental sampling, which I thought was interesting.
I mean, shit's gonna be falling out into the environment for a long time.
For a very long time. There were already like massive fish kills in the local creeks, like within days. Yeah, dude. It is such a fucking big deal. And so like, no, we don't have a ton of time. We wanted to wrap at 10:30, right?
Yeah, we're an hour and 20 right now.
Perfect.
I realized there was a timer. I was looking over and I'm like, oh, it tells you how long you've been live.
Oh, that's great. I was just looking at the time, and I know we actually started at 9 o'clock today, so that's great.
Yeah.
Or give or take 90 seconds. We're stoners, man. Come on.
Yeah.
But at any rate,
comes to the fat.
Yeah, no, but at any rate, this fucking train, like, I can't help but think how this fits into like a bigger pattern of like that bridge collapse, or like all these other things of our infrastructure breaking down and these consequences. And so Monday, what I'm hoping with your blessing is we will talk about nuclear power boosterism. And we've talked about nukes before, and you are a nuclear technician. You have more nuclear power education than most of the people in the country. I think would be safe.
That is safe to say.
That'd be safe to say that you're more educated on the nuclear power issue than most people. But I would really like to have a conversation, and it's not because I'm petty. It is not because I got blocked from a live stream, and it's not because I had my comments removed from their video. It definitely has nothing to do with my ego.
It sounds like it might have absolutely everything to do with all the things you've just listed.
No, shenanigans.
Wrong.
It does not. It has nothing to do with my ego. It has everything to do with the fact that they wouldn't fucking listen to me when I was trying to make good goddamn points. And to just silence someone, to be like, oh, you're not going to get along with what we're saying. We're like, nuclear creates jobs.
Everything creates
jobs. And I'm like,
jobs.
nuclear is not a fucking stand-in for, like, it doesn't replace fossil fuel, the production of the fuel. But we're going to go into details is what I hope to do.
Who hurt you, Steve? Who hurt you?
I want to go into details because I want to explore this issue because, like, as someone who's committed to like environmental sustainability, I mean, I literally just gave a talk to like a fucking church group, bro. They're called the World Interfaith Committee or Conference or something like that.
Okay.
On this last Sunday, I gave a speech. I'll send you the link. You can watch it if you want to.
Yeah.
But I talked
I'll put it in
about
that
land
video.
restoration. Like, so we're talking about jobs and equity and economic development, right, in this global south. And then talking about how do we fucking sequester carbon? How do we preserve biodiversity? We don't do it by building fucking nuclear power plants. Like, we do it by restoring ecosystems. And that was the point I was fucking trying to make.
Yeah.
Is that like you're now like these pro-nuclear boosters that you're not even checking their credentials, because just by publicly available information, I could find ties to the nuclear power industry and seeing these nonprofits that are just about a responsible growth future or whatever for the US are tied to industry money. And they're looking at like nuclear is like our chance, like nuclear fucking dropped off for a long time. And now they see people talking about money and they're billing it as the green nuclear deal or the new nuclear deal or whatever it's called, like trying to fucking, ride the coattails of that sloganeering.
Right.
And so I see these boosters and it's transparent to me. They know that money's coming out of Congress and that if they apply right pressure, they can get a lot of fucking subsidies. Right?
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
a fuck. And they're looking, and we can go over some of those subsidies on Monday because I found just a few where they were poised to get like in the like there were large chunks of money set aside, and the way it was worded, it didn't say it was pro-nuclear, but they basically like wrote it in such a way that the only projects that would apply, it was like you have to be at least 75 gigawatts per installation. And they're or whatever it was, 75 megawatts or whatever it was. And so basically you took most solar and wind like off of it because no one, like, we've never built that scale of power plant before using those types of technologies. But a nuclear power plant does produce that amount of light. So they found these kind of really like underhanded or backdoor, not in a good way. These backdoor routes to basically like write legislation to give themselves hundreds of millions of billions of dollars in subsidies. And so then you have like people I respect for their analysis and also their commitment to, I mean, I don't necessarily like people who like are just like live in this kind of detached world where like Marxist economic theory and they're all quoting like chapter numbers in the Gundries or whatever. Like, I don't give a fuck about that, dude. Like, but they're people I genuinely respect and I genuinely believe are committed to like working class politics. And then to see them bring in these like paid nuclear boosters that like through a bunch of shell companies and different environment, it's like they're an environmental front group that's funded by another nonprofit environmental fund group that then takes money from these nonprofit foundations, which those nonprofit foundations are tax havens for industry cash. So it's just like when the fucking Clinton Foundation took money from fucking Saudi Arabia or took money from fucking Russia, right? The Uranium One deal, right? Like,
well, the fuck, yeah,
and all that shit. That's another thing that came out this week. Columbia Journalism Review did a scathing piece. I only caught part of it and some reporting on it. I don't want to pretend I read it. I don't have that much time, for Christ's sake. But they did a big review on Russiagate and how it was an absolute fucking catastrophe of misinformation that all of institutional journalism was like guilty of partaking in. And one of the things they start with is like the Uranium One deal, where Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and helped negotiate this deal so that Russian companies, not that saying Russian before it makes it bad, but companies in Russia, I think I got out of focus, or maybe I need water or something.
Or you're getting drunk.
No, I don't really get drunk. I drink like 2, maybe 3 a night. I might get tipsy towards the end of the third. I don't really like waking up hungover. Not to pass judgment or anything. I'm not casting stones. I'm no Jesus.
I have
Do you
only
remember
woken up
that Family
hungover
Guy?
twice in the last year, and I drank a lot.
Yeah, that's true. I think the more you drink, the less you get drunk,
Yeah.
or the less you get hungover, at least.
Yeah.
At any rate, I was going to mention the Family Guy joke about Jesus. You know, he who without sin cast the first stone. He's like, nobody. All right, fucking boom. Oh God, Family Guy. No, at any rate, I was talking about nuclear power and some other shit, but
Yeah.
it's just a goddamn shame, man. You got all these fucking front groups and the uranium one thing. The Columbia Journalism Review paper on Russiagate was basically like it started as projection, right? Like because Karl Rove, the Republican strategist who was responsible for George H.W. or maybe it was like Newt Gingrich or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
He was important in right-wing politics in the 90s.
I recognize the name. He's got to be somebody.
He's got to be someone. I think he was involved in George W. Bush, his campaign in 2000 as well. Karl Rove. He now teaches a master class. I want to say with fucking Bill Clinton or something.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton and Karl Rove spent $150 on our fucking master class.
Yeah, I recognize that guy. Let's see.
At any rate, yeah, definitely Bush W for sure.
Yeah.
At any rate, he was really influential, and he had this thing that's like it's Jungian projection is what it is. Like if you want to go into like the social psychology of it, right?
Yeah.
So then they had this Uranium One, Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, like helped negotiate this thing. Uranium One got control as a company, got control of like 20% of North America's uranium assets. And it just happened at the same time, Uranium One gave like tens of millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. So you have like these clear corrupt connections, and then you see that in nuclear power, and you see that through all these various shell groups, Mothers for Nuclear War, like tons of press, tons of presence. You look at their nonprofit IRS filings, and they have like $6,000 come through their organization. It's like, bro, I've been in organizations that had like annual fucking operating budgets of like $12, $15, $25, $30,000. We never had a fraction of the fucking reach of this Mothers for Nuclear. And I wonder why that is, because it's not necessarily your organization. The organization gives you the air of authority, like, oh, we're activists that do this thing. And then you go present at conferences. You're like, I care about the future of the climate because I'm a mom with little babies. And it's the whole like fucking look, what about the children thing, while they're like, we need to have clean, safe nuclear power that's climate or that's carbon neutral.
If I could give one message to everyone, it would be that the moment.
Sorry, am I kind of mocking moms for nuclear terribly?
The moment people start talking about the children, start paying attention. Start paying more attention, because you're about to like have some wool pulled over your eyes. Because like the moment they do that call, they're about to say some fucked up shit. Like, oh, what about the children? We need to ban gays or whatever. It happens to be like so many bad.
We got to take the masks off
children,
because the children are being psychologically damaged by having to wear masks.
Right.
Which is just.
It's child abuse.
You know what would have been better? It's just like have a craft club at the school that like takes Halloween costumes and then does them up with some kind of proper or something that's better than nothing kind of thing to catch respiratory droplets, and then fit them into Halloween masks and then just pretend that every day is a costume day.
Although my children
parents
are afraid
be like, oh, costume day, you're damaging my children. No, it was a fucking manufactured culture war because they didn't want to believe that like they needed to be responsible for a general public because it's part of the reassertion of the individual, that classical liberal idea of the individual as like the beginning and end of politics.
The inviolate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of individualism thing where it's like we have no responsibilities to society. So I can be an absolute prick and throw my trash on the ground. I can cuss out that minimum wage worker at the Starbucks because my fucking coffee took longer than I wanted it to, or whatever. Host, it's just an excuse for people to be fucking
Did you
assholes.
know that when people do that, you can clap back at them, and it's okay by their own worldview? They don't like that, and I've done
Oh,
it.
no. Those are the people that reach the fastest for the fucking civility politics, bro.
Yeah.
I've
No,
been in these spaces. I've worked with these people. They will be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You're oppressing me, blah, 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 blah. You want my kids to wear a mask, blah, blah, blah. Or like, oh, you need to get your shit together, blah, blah, blah. And then you fucking clap back or something, like you
Yeah.
said. And like,
I'm just
it's
talking
not
about
a
the people that
discussion.
yell at minimum wage
Well,
workers.
that's what happened
Yeah.
to me, right? Like I ran for office. Remember that,
Yeah.
right? And do you remember like this person who like had zero experience, could not speak on a single issue, literally said nothing, just had all the very wealthy right-wing donors pool their money and then paid someone to do the advertising for the campaign. She said very little. When she showed up to events, she couldn't articulate a clear thought. She would say things like, well, you know, it's all these homeless people are affecting housing prices. And I'm like, interesting. Do you know what housing prices look like? Because the part of the reason we have homeless people is housing prices, but I can show you the data that the number of houseless people increased right along with housing prices. So
Right.
number of homeless people is not affecting housing prices. Housing prices are affected by speculation, but there's no need for a sense of reality. And then when, in her own words, said, I don't send my kids to school because they need a good education. They need to understand what God says.
Mhm.
They need to know the Bible, and they're not going to get that at school. And elsewhere said, God wants people to suffer when they're homeless because that's
Right.
the only way they're going to get right with him, is if they suffer enough, eventually they'll come around and find God.
Yeah.
And that to me is fascistic in its fucking core.
Yeah.
And so when I say, when this shit liberal politician talks shit about one of my friends who's also running against him and says, oh, well, she lives with her parents, as like someone in her mid-20s who has like struggled to find fucking meaningful employment enough to pay for high rents. And so she had the luxury of being able to live with a parent, whereas like most people that wind up homeless are like kids that phase out of foster care, or not most people, but like there's kids who phase out of foster care, or LGBTQIA kids whose parents like disassociate with them, or they get out and they can't, because of their kind of like shit that they're dealing with, being in an environment that kind of doesn't feel supportive to them, they
Right.
struggle to find meaningful employment and be able to pay rent or whatever, right? Like this just whole complex system of that people have to experience. And I said, you know, like this dude was like, oh, at least she has her own place. And she had her own place. She was the same age. She had her own place because she was fucking married and had like 4 kids already. And so I was like, well, I mean, can like saying someone is less worthy of holding public office and legislating on behalf of people and listening to people and serving the public is contingent on you owning a house. Like the only reason that she doesn't live with her parents probably is because she's chosen to be a fucking baby factory for Jesus, is what I said. A baby factory for Jesus.
Yeah.
I got a lot of fucking heat for that shit.
Well, the thing is, it's the old, cries to God are failing. And so more and more people are leaving religion or never adopting it in the first place. And so the only way to get more good Christians is to breed them yourself. And that's what's going on. That's why we're seeing, what we're seeing is basically.
Remember there was like a Fox News anchor, I forget who it was exactly, but they were talking about like Hispanics or Latin Americans immigrating to the US.
Yeah.
Emigrating with an E. Why are both of our cameras are really in and out tonight?
I don't
You're
know.
a little out of focus, and I keep going in and out of focus, but I think that might be partly lighting.
Real close.
I don't know.
Far away.
Either way, that was a 10:30 alarm. I did want to finish my thought.
Yeah.
Very fascistic, and there was this Fox News pundit that was like, well, if Latin Americans keep wanting to come here, then we have to make it our job to outbreed them.
Right.
So there are more white people than brown people. And when I hear my kids don't go to a public or a private school, I homeschool my kids so that I know they're learning the Bible the right way.
Mhm.
That's cultish. Like, if you're like, oh, only we know the right way, and we're going to like, you ever see these ads for the Tuttle twins?
No.
Let's do a
haven't
piece
heard.
on the Tuttle twins.
Okay.
But it's like a homeschool curriculum type thing that's like rabidly right wing, but then they package it for kids and then sell it to right wing parents to
Oh,
homeschool
okay.
their
Okay.
kids using these like fundamentalist free market bullshit and
Yeah.
absolutely whitewashed history.
Well, and
where
these
white
people that are
the
like
victors.
the people that are homeschooling their kids and teaching them the Bible and all that stuff, they're the first ones to, decry, fucking, drag people in schools or doing events
Or at a library,
as
someone being
trying,
dragged reading the
right,
kids.
as trying to brainwash them or indoctrinate them, and it's like you're just mad it's not the type of indoctrination you want, because you're doing the same thing to your kid by filling their head with religion, when they're too damn young to even understand it and get that it's an allegory and it's a story that's supposed to teach you how to behave, and instead you're just like, oh, it's real and you're going to hell if you don't follow it. And it's like, okay, don't think we need to scare children into
Yeah, but
behaving.
that's the world we live in, is that they'll be just absolute vicious assholes and then
Yeah.
scream civility politics
Yeah.
as soon as you say something. And it's all about who can command the narrative.
Mhm.
And really, social media has been fucking horrific.
Mhm.
And it has in the past. I think we've mentioned before how like the genocide in Rwanda and the genocide in and conflict in the former Yugoslavia would have never happened without radio. Hitler would have never happened without radio.
Mhm.
Like mass communication technologies definitely have a very important role in like fascist or right-wing populist movements.
Mhm.
And so we have to be very wary of that. And it's also part we mentioned today. Let's summarize. We mentioned the balloon and how that's been blown out of proportion. We talked a little bit about Nord Stream 2. We talked about Syrian sanctions, and all of these things keep coming together. We see train derailments that murder creeks and force people out of their homes and cause long-term toxic effects because our culture, our industry is thirsty for toxic things.
Well, and also the
And
lack
then
of infrastructure,
yeah, and
repairs
failing
and whatnot.
infrastructure because we're not putting money back into it. We didn't even talk about the State of the Union, which is Poodoo. I mean, it's shit. Like the State
Yeah.
of the Union is fucking garbage. And that's most of what we talk about on this show because we're both Americans. Specifically, we're both Californians. Specifically, we're both from the Central Valley, opposite sides of the Central Valley, but we're both in the Central Valley of California. So our perspective is we're both veterans of the American Armed Services, U.S. Armed Services. So we have this commonality, but our perspective is uniquely American in that sense. And we keep coming to these issues where we can see it collapsing and also see these tensions where it's going to explode in a fission fucking chain reaction. Because when liberty dies,
it dies with thunderous applause.
it really does. You had a thought there. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no.
Working a place in. It's
okay.
really hard sometimes to like wind our way back to where that's a good statement.
3 concurrent viewers tonight. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, subscribe.
Much love. Come hang out with us every Thursday, every Thursday. Let's do it every Thursday.
Give us ideas for shows. Say hello.
Yeah. Monday, though, we're talking nuclear power because I want to go through the carbon intensity of nuclear power and hopefully dispel the shit so people who think they're environmentalists can stick to their guns and realize that what we need is a global program of ecosystem restoration. And we need to accept the fact that we can't run an industrial society forever and that nuclear power is a temporary fix at best. And is it worth potential disaster and huge investments in cost and huge toxicity?
Fission nuclear power. Fusion's awesome.
Right. Okay, let's make some space to talk about fusion. Other than that, peace out. Enjoy your weekend. See you Monday.
Later all.
Peace.